Hey everybody! You're watching POLYMORFIX. My name is Alexis, and for the first time in 3 years, I decided to wash my hair, and it's looking great. Today, I have gathered here to do my first book reading vlog. Oh my god, what is happening? I don't know. I am just making this up as I go. For context, I basically watch no BookTok, BookTube, whatever content. The only content of that kind that I watch is by my former study colleague Áine. I will link her below, who does great TikToks and also YouTube videos on reading. I think mainly on reading. I've watched like 2 of the YouTube videos. I could be a better supporter, I'm sorry Áine, but here I am shouting you out, so you're welcome. Anyways, I saw her talk about detoxing from her phone and getting off her phone and off the screen by reading, which I thought was very interesting. And also in general, I was asked to do more book content by the great community that we have created here. So I figured, okay, I might combine the two and try to get off my phone, off my laptop, at least in a passive consuming way, and instead try to read more. And a good way to get myself to actually do that is to do it in a reading vlog potential format. I'm experimenting with this, and I decided to do this on Sunday. It's now Tuesday. I don't know when this video will be uploaded, but today, as of recording, it's Tuesday. So far, I've read a bit of the book that we're covering, and I've been really enjoying it. Also been really enjoying vlogging along. And just to get it out of the way, we are, I guess. I don't know if you feel included. I hope you do. We are reading Gay Talese, Frank Sinatra Has a Cold, and other essays. And this is basically a collection of reportages and essays by Gay Talese, who was an American writer, non-fiction writer, and he is really known as one of the new journalists. Now, I just want to give a bit of context for that as we get into the video. I did a bit of research, for which I consulted How to Read Nonfiction Like a Professor by Thomas C. Foster, a book I read a while ago, which I also really loved. This was almost in my book review video that I did recently. If you want to see more book content from me, you can of course check that out. And I remembered reading a chapter on new journalism in here, so I referenced this and went back to that to, get y'all some context on new journalism. Basically, it's Foster describes it as a category. Some people say it's a genre, but it's really more of a loose group of work/individuals making that work in the late 60s and 70s, who really defied some of the set rules that were placed upon nonfiction writing and journalism. It really connects journalism with art. It's almost more literature than it is proper reporting. It's somewhere in between. A lot of the new journalism work you would probably not read as regular journalism. It's, by the way, sometimes also called participatory journalism, because the whole point of it is that the authors and their subjectivity become part of the story. Because usually in journalism, one takes a step back, and these authors made a point to step into the story, and sometimes that comes through inner monologues or different things. It really also depends on the author. It can be really about personal experiences. It can be, interjecting with the people that are interviewed and just things of that sort. There are multiple writers who are kind of lumped in together with this. Joan Didion is one, Hunter C. Thompson, Truman Capote. I talked about some of these in my book reviews video as well. One of them is, of course, Gay Talese, who is, at least according to the back of this book, seen as one of the best nonfiction writers in America. And so far, I've definitely been enjoying his work. I read 1.5 of these stories before, probably a year ago, and now I'm reading through it fully. I've so far come halfway through-ish, and I've shared my thoughts, and those will follow in this video on that work. This will be a 2-parter though. I will in part 2 finish the book and then give probably like a ranking of like what I thought were the best stories, the worst, just some final finishing thoughts. Just 2 more notes on new journalism though. Foster also, and I'm trying to see if this is true, said that there's definitely like a peacock quality to this, to feel like, oh, I should be in this story and not just be like an outside observer or, you know, step back in like a language sense. There's a certain pride that comes with that, and I'm curious to see how that plays out through the rest of these stories. And also, new journalists, I feel like, and this is what Foster said as well, and through what I've read, I would agree so far. New journalists are really good at kind of opening the veil when getting into like close social circles. For example, Hunter S. Thompson about the Hells Angels, and even Truman Capote with Marlon Brando. You know, like people you would usually not meet, to get then the personal perspective of these writers, who are of course also just all great writers, all with their own styles. I think it's really great and unique, and you don't really get that with classic journalism so much, I feel. I just also enjoy seeing all the different writing styles. I don't know if I can really describe, well, there are some, I think, characteristics that Gay Talese has. He's very witty, he likes repetition in a sense, and I think it's very tongue-in-cheek usually. Well, Joan Didion, who is maybe not a new journalist, maybe she is, jury's still out on that, I guess, but she has a very like distant and perfected and kind of clean and cold writing style, while Hunter S. Thompson is just like going crazy in his work. Anyways, that has already been enough of an intro. I will now time skip to Sunday and we will start the reading vlog. I hope you enjoy. I hope you stick around for the next one. It's important to stay hydrated if you didn't know. Now you know. Hi. Okay, so this is reading vlog experiment day 1. This whole idea just has fully formed in my head, and I guess it's just time to get straight into it. By the way, sorry that I look like a drowned, harassed rat, but that's just who I am inside, so there's nothing I can do, really. I have read bits of this before. This was probably almost a year ago. There are multiple stories and essays and whatever in here. Vogueland, Joe Louis, the King as a Middle-Aged Man, Peter O'Toole on the Old Sod, The Loser, that's me, Frank Sinatra Has a Cold, Mr. Bad News, The Brave Tales of Maida, Ali in Havana, and Origins of a Non-Fiction Writer. I think we're gonna do this probably one story per sitting-ish, maybe 2 in a sitting, maybe half a story. They have different lengths. I will go through them just as they are in the book. There are some that are, I don't know, I'm seeing 16 pages here, for example, for one, or even 11, but there's also some that are like 40, or at least this one that's like 40 plus. So we're just gonna see how it goes, honestly. I will be sharing my thoughts along the way. We're gonna start off today with one that I've already read, which is The Vogueland from 1961. I love this. I remember this very vividly. It was what I mainly remember from this reading experience, where I just got like a few stories in. This one really stuck with me. Of course, this is more of like a topic also, so of course it would stick with me. I used to have a dream to work at Vogue. That dream is long gone. But I think it's just really fascinating. This was really well written, I remember this, so I'm actually really excited to read this again. I've got my tea, I've got my water, I've got my little cozy outfit on. Let's do it. By the way, tonight we're drinking this Kamen cinnamon and ginger tea in this very ugly mug. Can you guys see me good? I was going to wait until I check in for a bit, just like getting through the book and just like state some interesting things, or maybe just circle back after the chapter, but I just started and already this first, it's actually a sentence, if you can see, that is like the full first paragraph. This is all one sentence. Psychotic, but okay. And it's just such a good start, and I think this is really gonna set us up for this reading experience. So I'm just gonna read this out for you, just so you can see what kind of level of writing skills we're talking about. I'm quoting, "Each weekday morning, a group of suave and wrinkle-proof women who call one another dear and darling and can speak in italics and curse in French move into Manhattan's Gray Bar building, elevate to the 19th floor, and then slip behind their desks at Vogue, a magazine that has long been the supreme symbol of sophistication for every American female who ever dreamed of being frocked by Balenciaga, shod by Roger Vivier, coiffed by Kenneth, or set free to swing from the Arc de Triomphe in maiden form mink." Mic drop. That sentence rocked my world. You immediately get the whole vibe. This reportage is about the women working at Vogue, clearly, and it sets the tone, sets the mood in such a specific way, immediately getting into the mannerisms, which, like, even though it's just like a few lines with the speaking in italics and cursing in French, that is so specific and so wonderfully put. It's really stunning. It also brings us into the real world, Manhattan's Gray Bar building, and them going behind their desks, etc. And also already shows us like the other side, because it's at the end of the day about the consumers of Vogue, who are all these American ladies who want to be, you know, dressed by Balenciaga or whatever. Within one very long sentence, the whole stage is set basically for what is to come in this. And I think that's super impressive. Also, I'm going to read out the next sentence because this is like immediately like a great little joke, and so referential. You kind of have to be smart to read this, sorry. But I think it's just like really funny and very specific, such a specific reference. Second sentence, we're going in. "Not since Sappho has anybody worked up such a lather over women as have the editors of Vogue. Lesbians? In my Gay Talese story, is this a sign? Is this code for something? Does it mean that, like, this is just gay through and through? And this is a straight man, allegedly." It's crazy. The queers are everywhere. The writing's on the wall at Vogue, apparently. Okay, so I am more than halfway through it. I mean, this has like 11 pages. I'm on page 8 now. And I just wanted to mention some things that I found interesting or funny in this already. First of all, we get a scene. We follow two editors to a preview of a fashion line, like a collection, that is shown first to these Vogue editors, which it's just funny to me because that reminds me so much of The Devil Wears Prada. I just find it interesting that this is a scene that we get in both media, which are like, what, more than 40 years apart, 45 years apart. And this is just something so special about it, apparently. And I don't know, it's just funny to have that picture in the back of your mind. Also, second thing, I'm going to just read this quick quote out. "But above Vogue's ultra-chic level, according to the sociologists, there looms an even more envied class of women, the unfashionable, old money, rich." Leave it up to Gay Talese to make old money a thing. TikTok, eat your heart out. Quick tangent. I was scrolling on TikTok today. Okay. I came across this video where this girl was like doing an old money hairstyle, and I'm like, girl, it's February 2026. Why are we still running the old money, new money train? And she was like, well, this hairstyle is like more old money, and blah, 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 but I still like it even though I'm not that. And I'm like, sorry? Are you joking? Like, take several seats, please, girl. Like, this has been over. I'm not even going to get into the like different arguments of this discourse, I think, because it's over. Like, we don't even need to talk about old money anymore and discuss if it's like a good or bad trend or whatever, because it's dead. What are you doing? You should have left your old money hairstyles at the door several years ago. And then a paragraph later, describing the Vogue level, they continued, in the social class just below the old money families, we find most of the high fashion, Paris-conscious style leaders. Since they are aware of the class above, perhaps trying to gain entrance into it, these women seek to combine opulence with quiet elegance. Fashion copy for this group stresses the pose of assured distinction, effortless superiority, and inbred elegance. I guess nothing is just ever new, and the old money, new money dynamic, it's been done. It's been discussed. So to make an equally outdated reference, we are reheating nachos, specifically Gay Talese's nachos, apparently, with this old money, new money dialogue. Like, we've been through it and nothing has changed. We have critiqued, discussed, etc., but it's still the same, which is, if I think about it deeply, kind of depressing, but well, that's just late-stage capitalism. Yes! Love it. Okay, and with that, we are done with the first story. This was so quick. Vogueland, here's a little review. Just as a quick summary, we follow 3 scenes through Gay Talese's eyes. First, we're just like in the office in general. Then we are at the preview that I just mentioned. And then we finish up at a photo shoot. There's just something so insanely clever about Gay Talese's writing. I have already read out like little bits and bobs. One thing that he does is he, first of all, kind of talks about the lingo that they use in Vogue, using very specific adjectives specifically. Like vivid, vital, amusing, amusable, exquisite, delicate moonbeam beauty, these sort of things, this very specific kind of language, and he uses this same language on women that he introduces throughout the story. At the fashion preview, for example, we meet Mildred Morton, and I quote, pure profiled blonde with slightly bored raised eyebrow. Also, he kind of talks about the standing of Vogue as a magazine, both within the larger like fashion magazine world and within Condé Nast as a company, because there's also glamour and it's kind of this like, if you will, class war between the glamour girls who say hi, they are hi people, and the Vogue girls who would never say that. They say dinner, not party. They say gown, not formal. And also, I will say, this is such a like immersive experience. I think also if you are a person who, you know, would read Vogue or is into this kind of thing, because Gay Talese does not only talk about the people and, you know, discuss like facts about Condé Nast or whatever. He seems to really know his stuff, and I think this is probably down to great research. He mentions all the designers and the fabrics and whatever, and it's, you know, you feel like he knows what he's talking about, which is really great and special, because usually as journalistic writers you don't have that much time to get like fully accustomed into like a thing, but you know, he's not a fashion writer, so to really immerse yourself in the fashion industry in that way, I think is really great, and to also transfer that into the text is fantastic work. Smashing, what can I say? He also knows how to like hold and build tension within these individual scenes, and he is very cheeky. All of this feels very tongue-in-cheek, like it's your friend telling you a fun, juicy story about how they visited Vogue, not in the classic sense, some writer explaining something and showing something through reportage. He, to, in my opinion, a comedic effect. For example, when there's the photo shoot, constantly writes click to like, you know, signify that pictures are being taken. Just to read a small excerpt from this. Oh, that's good, hostess. Do it again. Click. Dorothea smells. Click. Opens her mouth. Click. Wider. A big O. Click. Hat's coming off. She giggles. Just smile. Don't grim, he says. Click. Make a long neck. She stretches. Click. That's my girl, he says. Click. Yes. He repeats slowly. Click. And I think this is just great. This is a lovely way to start this project for myself. I think this is also just a really stellar work, and it's one of his earlier works. People don't write like this anymore. That's immediately my thought, and I'm sure we'll discuss this more down the line, but newspapers of any kind don't do long reportages like this, and this is one of the shorter ones in this book, but by today's standards this is very long, and people don't take the time for this sort of thing to read and write it. I feel like everything's become more shortened and economical, which is fair to a certain degree, and there's some merit in that. But also this is, I think, what really sets this apart as kind of literature, you know, as an example for new journalism as literature. It's not just classic reporting at the end of the day. He's taking this time through all of these scenes, and he's conveying larger ideas, and he's doing it in this very artful way, with cheeky language and information that is kind of conveyed on the side. I mean, it quickly states how Vogue was founded and how Condé Nast took over and made this huge thing. But you're just really immersed in the scenes, which is so special, and it takes a really great writer to get to that point. Already so many thoughts on just this little bit. This is going to be horrible, a horribly long video probably, but we shall keep going. We will get right into the next one because I am hooked already. This one I believe I've also read, but I think this was more of a eyes on the page rather than words in the head situation, if that makes sense to anybody. Of course, I was paying a lot of attention to the Vogue story because hello, we're gonna be giving attention to this one as well. Okay, so I just went straight ahead and read the second reportage in this, and it's Joe Louis, the King as a middle-aged man, and immediately that title was kind of scary to me because middle-aged man, they're just scary. I'm going to, just to get us all in the mood, read out some of the first few sentences. Hi, sweetheart, Joe Louis called to his wife, spotting her waiting for him at the Los Angeles airport. She smiled, walked toward him, and was about to stretch up on her toes and kiss him, but suddenly stopped. Joe, she said, where's your tie? Oh, sweetie, he said, shrugging. I stayed out all night in New York and didn't have time. All night? She cut in. When you're out here, all you do is sleep, sleep, sleep. Sweetie, Joe Louis said, with a tired grin. I'm an old man. Yes, she agreed, but when you go to New York, you try to be young again. So, this story is about Joe Louis, go figure, who I guess was a boxing champion around the 40s, 50s, more like 40s, I think. Maybe 30s, 40s. First of all, we kind of start off with the POV, well, not the POV, it's always Gay Talese's POV, but we follow Martha Louis first, kind of, who is his third wife, current wife, the one who we also meet in this, beginning, in this opener, if you will. And first of all, she's such a character. I'm gonna just read out a quick quote. In court, I'm a lawyer, she said, but when I'm home, I'm all woman. Her voice was husky, suggestive. I treat a man right. I treat a man like a king. If he treats me right, she added, pouring herself a glass of milk. And I guess this is also where the king as a middle-aged man comes from. By the way, this is from 1962. She's such a character. We, as I said, kind of follow her along. And then we get a bit of Joe himself. And then comes the really, really interesting part where this turns really classically new journalism. So a couple of pages in, we read this from Gay Talese directly. Joe Louis had told me all about this earlier in the day on the plane during our flight to Los Angeles from New York, where I had spent some time following him around Manhattan and watching him function as a public relations executive. And we get more fourth wall breaks in that way when Joe says, you know, I've been married to 3 of the finest women in the world. My only mistake in life was getting divorced. Why did you then? I asked. And this is the first time we get in this book where Gay Talese uses the I and the me, and basically becomes a character, and that's what new journalism is all about. From here on, this kind of keeps going, and it's just so special. It's so interesting. I write myself for a living, and I almost never I was able to use the I voice one time for work, and this is just so refreshing and nice. I will get into this in a deeper way later. But basically, we get this reflection from Gay Talese openly in the book about Joe King and how he sort of misjudged him. For example, rightly or wrongly, I had imagined that this middle-aged hero would merely be a flabby version of the rather dim-witted champion that Don Dunphy used to interview over the radio after the knockout of another great white hope. Basically questioning his own initial judgment. So interesting. You would obviously never get this in a regular text today. I also have to say, Joe King is such a character. For example, he did public relations with Fidel Castro and was like, it's great on Cuba, which Gay Talese does not necessarily seem to agree with. And obviously in the political, historical context, it's very funny. As I read out earlier, Gay Talese just said, oh yeah, I was with him in New York. Well, we have this reflection of Gay Talese and basically, revising his own personal views on him. And then we get to New York, where we see Joe be, a businessman in this PR firm that he has and whatever. And we follow him along, during an office day to this meeting and whatever. And then, after dinner, Louis and the rest planned to go night clubbing in Harlem. But I had an appointment to see Louis' second wife, Rose Morgan. Again, directly stepping into the story, even in writing. And from here on, we were with Rose Morgan, his second wife. And this is the final scene that then comes where Gay Talese visits her and her new husband. And it's, they want to talk about Joe, of course. And we also get this little scene when the new husband comes in with a few friends. And Rose says, I'm just showing Joe's fight film. And then, I hate to put you through all the trouble, I told her. Oh, that's no trouble, Rose said. I haven't seen it in years, and I'd love to see it again. Is it all right with you if we watch it? I asked Rose's husband. And he's making commentary saying that the husband basically was being polite and saying, yeah, it's fine. But it seemed obvious to Gay Talese that it wasn't really fine. He didn't want to see it. And altogether, my thoughts on this one, love it. Of course, I love the new journalism elements and this, actually him stepping into it. And again, he's just such a great scene writer, but also when it's cold text passages where he, goes through some information is also written so well. But the scenes are show so much, and he has such an eye for detail and knows how to bring up those details in something happening into the text so that we feel like we get that same intimate view into his life. Also, it's incredible for me to see that he was just following this guy around for days from New York, flying to LA and then being with him there, and also, seeing the ex-wife and whatever. All this investment, obviously, this is a lot of money. There was a lot of money in print back in these days. There's not anymore. But it's nice that they take the time. And that's how you get, I guess, these deep, immersive reading experiences. Also, I will just say, which kind of got me a little shooketh, if you will, as I was reading. In this text, there's a lot of use of the N-word that ends with O. I'm trying to do this the right way. I'm sorry. A lot. It comes up a lot. And I think, from what I know, it's just historically in the 60s, what Black people were commonly referred to. I think this was it's not it doesn't seem to be obviously in a disparaging way. I think Gay Talese very much gains appreciation for him in this text, which is why he's, the king as a middle-aged man. It's just, as a reader in 2026, it just kind of gets you by surprise, I suppose. Just one finishing thought on this, especially in contrast to the first text. I was really impressed by the way that Gay Talese got me kind of invested in the story that I just wouldn't care about. Like, nothing really draws me to the story of some boxing champion from God knows when in America. I'm naturally drawn to Vogue Nation or whatever it's called, Vogue Land. But through doing this little reading thing, and because Gay Talese is just such a good writer, he really got me to care about this. I don't really want to know much more, but this I really enjoyed reading. So we're already, I feel like, off to a great start. I'm really pleased with this so far. I'm excited to get into the next few stories on another day. It was really nice to read with this level of attention also, because I know I'm gonna talk about what's happening and what I liked and maybe disliked about the text. I have to be way more conscious. I'm taking notes, a lot of notes, in fact, on my little diddle blog. If you know, you know. If you're German, you know. And I think that's really good for myself as well. Crazy. I don't know. And also, I, like, low-key don't want to get on my phone again. Obviously, I'm filming on my phone, so it's not zero phone usage. But I'm actually, like, I still have some time before my, like, you know, screen time limit comes in. My time limit, my curfew, if you will, which is 10 o'clock. I don't use, you know, I switch off all displays or whatever. I still have some time for that, but I actually just want to, like, read a bit more about new journalism to, like, research. So I guess that's a good thing. I think that's a good first step in this little experiment. Hopefully this will keep going, you know. But on that front, we are good as well, which is lovely. What if I just do this whole chapter in this position, which feels very natural and comfortable to me? Like that. Hello everybody, we are back for day 2 of the reading blog experiment. And before we get into this chapter, I just want to briefly mention I started this yesterday, last night, and immediately I could feel some positive effects, which I also, like, I think briefly went over. I was like, I don't want to be on my phone. And in fact, I didn't really get on my phone, and I certainly did no scrollage last night, which was amazing. And also I read more, like, after reading the Gay Talese stories, I finished finally Christopher Isherwood's Berlin novels, and also started this Clarice Lispector Hour of the Star, oder Gistreda, if you will, book. Just a few pages, but it still felt really good to be, like, so in the mood for reading. And also this morning when I woke up, I did a bit of, like, scrollingo, but I went off it pretty quickly, which I'm happy with. Baby steps over here. Anyways, it's the next day and we're reading the next chapter slash story. Of course, they're not really chapters in that sense. And it's Peter O'Toole on the Old Sod from 1963. And of course we're staying caffeinated because I'm, I guess, in fact, a millennial who has no other personality than coffee. Isn't that nice? Also, if I'm looking like a bearded lady right now, first of all, mind your business. Second of all, is anybody into that? Anyways, we are of course starting this off by reading the first paragraph. Technically, it's not the first paragraph because this starts off with a, like, quotation from somewhere. I don't know where it's from, but I guess it's about Peter, maybe. Peter, Mr. O'Toole, if you will. It's basically, just to summarize this quickly, it's this boy in, I guess, like a Christian school or something, and he's drawing a horse. And the nuns are going around and looking at what the children are drawing. It's like a classroom situation. And basically at some point, the boy begins to, like, add, like, a male appendage to the horse. And has it, like, urinating. And then one of the nuns does not like that and hits him. And then we get into the first proper paragraph. Oh, those bitches, said Peter O'Toole, now 31, still feeling the sting after all these years. Those destitute, old, unmarried birds with those withered, sexless hands. God, how I hated those nuns. He threw his head back, finished his scotch, then asked the stewardess for another. We're always on the planes, gay. Peter O'Toole was sitting in an airplane that 1 hour before had left London, where he has long lived in exile and was flying to Ireland, his birthplace. Now, great start. I think it's really interesting to start with a quotation. I hope we find out where this is actually from. I, of course, have no idea who Peter O'Toole is. Maybe I'll have to do some research. But I think we are off to a strong start. It's very like vivid, it's very graphic, it's very crude. But I think that probably sets the table for who he is as a person. Also, him being from Ireland and this nunnery situation certainly makes sense. You know, rise up Catholic hive. Not me, but you know, good for you, I guess, if you are part of that. And I'm excited to read this. This is, I think, also like a quicker one. Yeah, it's just like 11 pages or something, so I think we'll get through this quickly. And I shall be reporting back. Okay, so I'm just now done with Peter O'Toole. And I really enjoyed this. This was, I feel like, a masterclass in writing a profile or portrait of a person, like a journalistic portrait. Gay Talese stabs back a little bit more than he did in the previous reportage. We kind of follow along Peter O'Toole, who turns out is an actor. He famously, I guess, acted in Lawrence of Arabia. I'm so sorry about that. But, you know, he's a famous actor. And he goes back to Ireland, where he's originally from, and goes to a bar and then to the races and then to this like quiet spot outside town. And Gay Talese is with him the whole time. I mean, obviously, from Gay Talese, we get a lot of description of just what he's doing, like a lot of scenic work, if you will. There's no I, me perspective in this one. And I just wanted to shout out some lines. And I must say, this is really also made great because O'Toole just seems to be such a character. I mean, I read out the first bit briefly, which already I feel like was quite telling. There's also this one long paragraph where Talese does what you're actually usually not meant to do. At least that's how I learned it, you know, in the 21st century, which is just like stating things about people, especially like in a portrait like this. But it works really well because he just does this once in this whole thing for a very long paragraph, which, by the way, this whole paragraph is 3 sentences and it's 2 quick ones. And then over here starts the sentence that goes all the way down to the end. So there you go. King of long sentences, but it's still easily readable. I mean, it's also like separated by semicolons. So I just want to like read out just a bit of this just so you can get a taste. They were all linked somehow with Ireland and the church, with his smashing up so many cars that his license had to be taken away, and with marching in ban-the-bomb parades, with becoming obsessed with Lawrence of Arabia, with detesting cops, barbed wire, and girls who shave under their arms, with being an aesthete, a horse player, a former altar boy, a drinker who now wanders through the streets at night buying the same book. My life is littered with copies of Moby Dick. And reading the same sermon in that book, and if we obey God, we must disobey ourselves. And on and on and on. Really telling, like it's just stating characteristics at the end of the day and just running them down, but he breaks it up with like, you know, funny bits, like him, and just like weird things, like him buying Moby Dick all over again. And O'Toole also has some great quotes in here. When I feel like always has to be selective with quotes, like as a writer, you know, you have to choose wisely. In this, again, it's like a lot more of a long format than one would write today. Usually you have more room for quotes, obviously. There are a lot of quotes in here. It's really mostly quotes and then just scenic work and then that one descriptor, really. There's not a lot of observations and judgments from Gay Talese in this. Just another quote just to get a bit of vibe of Peter O'Toole. what are movies anyways? Just fucking moving photographs, that's all. But the theater, there you have the impermanence that I love. It's a reflection of life somehow. It's like building a statue of snow. So we see so much in this, like he's getting drunk, he's being, you know, at the parties, but he has some profound things to say, and he talks about how he like got into a bit of psychosis as he was filming Lawrence of Arabia, which was like a 2-year and 3-month process, as he keeps repeating. And overall, this was a very enjoyable text. Again, I had obviously no idea who this guy is. I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia. I've also not read it. I feel like, from what I've heard, it's very like, it's like fetishizing this idea of the Middle East, which is also its own, like the word Middle East, I am aware, is also like its own issue, but that's all I know about it. And I've never really heard of this actor, but again, I really found it enjoyable. I think if I were to have a journalism writing class, certainly in the English language, and I would be discussing profiling, I would probably suggest reading this as a reference and as just some inspiration on like how to do it. Just because in journalistic writing, there's a big tendency to just explain things, and barely anything here was explained. It was all shown, you know, show, don't tell. That's the thing that you really have to, you know, keep in mind when you're writing. The thing is, because as journalists, we write mainly tells, not shows, just, you know, writing down the news. And it's a whole different style of writing when you want to do like a reportage or a profile. There you have to get into the showing, and a lot of people are not really familiar with that skill anymore, which is so fair because you barely use it because nobody writes or reads profiles anymore. But this, as I said, I feel like was a masterclass. Really enjoyed that. And I think a lot of it came from both Gay Talese and also Peter O'Toole. Both, you know, their magic just worked together in this one, I feel. Oh my god, you here in my bed? Wow, what a pleasant surprise. Anyways, it's still reading vlog day 2. It's the evening now. I had quite a full day, low-key. I was cutting hair scissors, and shout out Mattis, love you. I was cutting hair, and I was working on a job application, and I was like doing this and that, and like I had some like errand type things to take care of. And I just watched an episode of Real Houses of Potomac, because I mean, yes, this is about like getting away from the screens and whatever, but not completely. You know, I'm not going cold turkey here. We're just minimizing. And also, can I just say, Real Houses of Potomac is such a mess. Anyways, I am now gonna continue. We are on the 4th story, which is The Loser. And this is kind of a longer one. It's like almost 30 pages. Well, the others were like quite short in comparison. This is from 1964. I'm going to, of course, read out the first paragraph. And I'm gonna see if I'm gonna do this in like one sitting. I'll just see how I feel. I'm kind of tired, even though it's like not even 7. I'm giving grandma core. But we'll just see how far we get. But it's really like an easy read always with Gay Talese, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Anyways. At the foot of a mountain in upstate New York, about 60 miles from Manhattan, there is an abandoned country clubhouse with a dusty dance floor, upturned bar stools, and an untuned piano. And the only sounds heard around the place at night come from the big white house behind it. The clanging sound of garbage cans being toppled by raccoons, skunks, and stray cats making their nocturnal raids down from the mountain. Like this video if you've ever gone on a nocturnal raid. I know I have. Anyways, I will of course be taking notes and check in at some point, either maybe midway through the chapter or the whole way through. Whoopsie. See you later. Hey, what's up? I have not moved. I have read more than half of the story now. of The Loser. And first of all, it's about a fighter again. A disgraced fighter, if you will. He, I think, I guess very publicly lost 2 fights with the same guy. And he definitely has he carries a lot of pain. What's interesting so far is that, at least so far, we have gotten no Áine perspective from Gay Talese. At some point on one page, there's almost like a fourth wall break, but it doesn't quite fully go there with the Áine. Oh yeah, just at one point here, this is the only thing that came up of this sort so far. How old are they? He was asked. Who was he asked by? Very probably Gay Talese, because I think at this point it seems to only be the 2 of them that we're following along. Patterson is, I don't know, I'm really struggling to like sympathize with him. No, actually, I don't know if that, well, yeah, it's true. He's an angry middle-aged man. Well, he's not even middle-aged. He's an angry 29-year-old, and I don't get him. Like, I would say today, if I met this guy, you should get therapy. That's kind of my takeaway so far from him as a person. I feel like Gay Talese really stepped back with this one again. There's this whole, like, in this format, whole page that is just like, I guess this like inner monologue. Well, it's actually like almost 2 pages. And there's some really good bits in here, but I guess it's just like all his words, so, and in general, there's a lot more, because obviously it's longer as well, there's a lot more dialogue bits and like quotations. I personally would have preferred for some of them to be edited down a little bit. I feel like some of them are a bit repetitive, and maybe that's just, of course, it's probably also just the way Patterson, the fighter guy who's getting profiled, talks, and you can't help that, but I would have condensed it down a little bit. You can still keep the same meaning, just edit it down. That's my personal opinion, but this is obviously also like a very long piece. So, but there are some very interesting and insightful passages that really moved me, in fact. And also, I just have to shout out this, I think he was the manager or trainer or something. This reminded me of this like listing in the previous reportage with a very like witty rundown of characteristics that I'm going to read out right now. Tomato, who took over training Patterson when the fighter was 17 or 18 years old and exerted a tremendous influence over his psyche, is a strange but fascinating man of 56 who is addicted to Spartanism and self-denial, and is possessed by suspicion and fear. He avoids subways because he fears someone might push him onto the tracks, never has married, never reveals his home address. What a character immediately. I mean, he's not even, at least, he's not really talked about it much after this, but I think just such a poignant characterization. In that passage, as I said, I am like more than halfway done with this one. I'm getting super tired. I think I need a break from this, at least for a few minutes. A few pages in, I already started reading out loud, which I sometimes like to do, just to stay more focused and stay more alert. This is just, in general, like a topic that does not interest me so much, so I think that makes it kind of harder to, like, stay focused on this. And also, I just had a long day and whatever, I'm not freshly caffeinated. So, I think I will take a quick breakinho and then come back later to finish the story. I definitely think I will finish it tonight. It's just making me sleepy. But yeah, little life hack for y'all. If you're struggling to focus, just read out loud. It's a great way to practice accents. That's what I do. Practice, and by the way, I'm not like other people's accents. I'm just experimenting with my with the Britishness of my accent. Okay, whatever. Whatever. See you later. Hello. I am literally so back right now. I took a little break and I watched a bit of more Potomac, of course. I would never let you near my husband. You don't have one. Exactly. And you don't either. And I don't either. Anyways, I have recharged a little bit. Oh my god, I have to show you. First of all, I had this little like Goon City fuzzy lollipoppy from España. Fresquito. Dip and lick. Yum. And also I had some of these hot chili gimps. Sorry, I don't know what's worse, the fact that they're called that or that my mum gifted me these. Anyway, they're obviously a chili licorice and they're actually quite yummy. You can have like 3 at once and then you're like, okay. Not because they're so spicy, just because it's like, I love licorice, but even I cannot like have like more than 5 in one sitting. But yeah, sorry, quick tangent. I am going to like get back into the hashtag loser right now and I'm gonna finish it. I've decided I'm just gonna run through and then I think I'm actually gonna end this video here. Well, not here, not this moment, but like after that story, I'm gonna end this video and do a part 2 because it's already, I feel like, getting long and I don't want to do like a 50-minute video. I'd rather do like 2 that are a bit quicker, a bit shorter. So I guess that's just what I'm gonna do. And if I'm not gonna do that, I guess keep watching because there's like 35 minutes more to go. But anyways, I'm gonna continue reading this chapter. And maybe I'm gonna even keep going. I don't know. But right now I feel like I'm gonna finish this and then be done with the book for today. Because the next one is actually the Sinatra one and it's the longest one and I think I need a breakinho. So anyways, talk soon. Bye. Okay, so maybe not my teddy bear spot next to me. Okay, so I have finished the hashtag loser and I have a few finishing thoughts. Not that many though. I mean, I had like a third of the story I think left to read and it was kind of boring all throughout. It was definitely my least favorite so far. I thought it was long and it had some interesting parts. They were just not interesting to me. I think, as I've mentioned, he's just kind of this like, you know, flawed man who clearly has a lot of issues. And it's interesting to get into that in a way, to hear about his childhood towards the end and just different kinds of insecurities. But I don't know, altogether, it didn't really speak to me as much. I think I don't really care. I don't care about men's stories. Sorry. Is that harsh to say? Fight me in the comments below. But yeah, this was just not my favorite. I am hoping that the next one will be better. But I've read part of Frank Sinatra Has a Cold, so I'm sure it will be better. I think there was just too much time spent for not really getting anywhere with this story. I will say overall though, it is just an interesting angle to interview this like former champion who then became like a massive loser in front of the whole country. And Gay Talese is all about finding like the little people and thinking in a big way about them. So I think that was very, very that in a way. And I think to some people this story can be very endearing, just not to me personally. So that's that. Okay, actually I just have one quick introduction to make, like one quick thought to add that I just now forgot as I was rounding up. One passage that I actually thought was very, 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 very interesting was a moment where Gay Talese openly challenges him, not to a fight of course, but you know, calls him out in a way, and then gets called out himself. Just for context, for a bit here, Patterson has been talking about how he, you know, doesn't really hate people and this and that and whatever. Could it be, Floyd, that you made a mistake in becoming a prize fighter? Nothing else? Like, no, I asked or he was asked. It's just like straight up that question. Response, what do you mean? Response, well, you say you're a coward. You say you have little capacity for hate, and you seemed to lose your nerve against those schoolboys in Scarsdale this afternoon. Don't you think you might have been better suited for some other kind of work, perhaps a social worker? Or are you asking me why I continue to fight? Yes. Well, he said, not irritated by the question. First of all, I love boxing. Boxing has been good to me. And I might just as well ask you the question, why do you write? Or do you retire from writing every time you write a bad story? And I probably made it cuntier in my head, but call him out, sis. I've never in anything seen somebody in this sort of way, first of all, get questioned by a journalist and then re-question them. And I think that was a really good part. I think that was probably my highlight in this whole text. I just want to have mentioned that. I thought that was really strong. Again, I thought it's really interesting that Gay Talese is really stepping back here compared to some of the earlier works and only really coming through in this specific moment, while in some other stories we've seen him, change his mind as we are reading along and stuff like that. I hope we get more of his inner monologue and his personal views through down the line, but I'm sure we will. Fingers crossed, guys. But that's just a thought that I had to add. You're so welcome. Okay, and with that, we are here again in the future and the present. For you, it's the past. It's not magical. We are back here to finish up this video. Just quickly, thank you so much for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed it. So far, I definitely have been a bit more off my phone, which is great, which is what I really wanted. And also just immediately having, I guess, to form opinions and share those opinions is also a great exercise for me, I think. Because, side note, in a very autistic way, I usually don't have opinions a lot, which was recently pointed out to me, and I'm trying to fix that. So maybe this is a good exercise to actively form opinions while consuming something. Anyways, what a tangent. Thank you so much for watching. Please do share, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell or something. Let me know if you've read Gay Talese and what you've thought of his work, or if this made you interested in him or new journalism in general. If there's anything else you would like me to read like this, I definitely would prefer a shorter work. I don't want to do a reading vlog of a 500-page book, because we're gonna be here for years and I have commitment issues. So do let me know if you have any suggestions, and I am looking forward to seeing you as well for the next one, where we will be reading Frank Sinatra Has a Cold, Mr. Bad News, The Brave Tales of Maida, Ali in Havana, and Origins of a Nonfiction Writer. Exciting stuff. Stay tuned. Things are happening. Bye!